The Coast Guard cutter's spotlight pierced through the storm, illuminating Karen's terrified face as she clung to the stolen jet ski, waves crashing over her in the churning black water. What started as a neighbor's petty theft had spiraled into a federal crime scene, and the truth about why she really took those jet skis was about to surface. But Marcus had no idea that saving her life would expose a secret that would destroy everything he thought he knew about his own family. Part 1. The Perfect Storm. Marcus Rivera stood on his dock at 6:30 a.m., coffee steam rising from his mug as he watched the morning mist lift off Lake Hartwell. The two Yamaha jet skis bobbed gently in their lifts, their metallic blue hulls catching the first rays of sunlight. He'd worked double shifts at the power plant for 6 months to afford them. Every overtime hour justified by moments like the spetsy Saturday mornings when the lake belonged to him and his daughter Sophia. "Dad, hurry up!" Sophia's voice carried from the house, excitement threading through her words. "You promised we'd be first on the water today." At 15, Sophia had inherited her mother's impatience and Marcus's love for speed. The jet skis were supposed to be their thing, their weekend escape from the suffocating routine that had settled over their lives since Elena's death 2 years ago. Marcus had hoped that the machines would bring back some of Sophia's laughter, help her remember that joy still existed in their world. He drained his coffee and turned toward the house, but movement in his peripheral vision made him freeze. Karen Whitfield stood waist-deep in his boat slip, her perfectly manicured hands gripping the handlebars of his newer jet ski. Her designer workout clothes were already soaked, and her usually pristine blonde bob hung in wet strings around her face. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Marcus's voice cut through the morning stillness. Karen didn't look up. She continued fumbling with the ignition, her movements frantic and uncoordinated. "I need to borrow this. It's an emergency." "An emergency." Marcus set his mug down hard on the dock railing. "Karen, get away from my jet ski now." For 3 years, Karen Whitfield had been the neighborhood's self-appointed enforcer of property values and social order. She'd filed complaints about Marcus's work truck in his own driveway, organized petition drives against his unsightly boat dock, and made passive-aggressive comments about single fathers who let their daughters run wild. The woman lived in a $800,000 lakefront house and drove a BMW, but she'd never shown the slightest interest in water sports. "You don't understand," Karen said, her voice cracking. "I have to get to the other side of the lake. My car, ... I can't take my car." The engine finally caught, and the jet ski roared to life. Karen twisted the throttle awkwardly, and the machine lurched forward, nearly throwing her into the water. Marcus ran to the edge of his dock. "Karen, stop. You don't know how to operate that thing." But she was already pulling away, the jet ski weaving erratically as she struggled with the controls. Marcus watched in disbelief as his neighbor, the same woman who'd once called the police because his music was too loud at 8 p.m., stole his jet ski in broad daylight. Dad Sophia appeared. Beside him, still in her pajamas, was that Mrs. Whitfield. "Why is she taking our jet ski?" Marcus's jaw tightened as he watched Karen disappear around the bend, heading toward the main channel. "I have no idea, sweetheart, but she's about to find out that theft has consequences." He pulled his phone from his pocket and dialed 911. The dispatcher sounded skeptical when he reported the theft of middle-aged soccer mom stealing. A jet ski wasn't exactly typical criminal behavior, but Marcus insisted, and she agreed to send a patrol boat when one became available. "This is unbelievable," Sophia muttered, settling onto the dock beside her father. "She's always complaining about us, and now she's stealing from us." Marcus wrapped an arm around his daughter's shoulders. 3 years of Karen's harassment had taught him patience, but this crossed every line. "Don't worry, baby. She can't get far. She doesn't know the lake, and she can barely handle the machine." They sat in frustrated silence, watching other boaters begin their Saturday routines. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from his brother David, "Still on for the race today. Water's perfect." The Hartwell Cup was this afternoon, an informal jet ski race that Marcus had been training for all summer. He'd already paid the entry fee and promised Sophia they'd compete together in the tandem division. Now one of his machines was gone, stolen by a woman who probably didn't know port from starboard. "We can still race," Sophia said, reading his expression. "We've got the other ski." Marcus nodded, but his focus remained on the empty boat slip. Something about Karen's behavior bothered him beyond the obvious crime. The desperation in her voice, the way she'd ignored his protests, it didn't fit her usual pattern of entitled superiority. Karen Whitfield was many things, but she wasn't stupid or impulsive, so why risk a felony theft charge for a machine she couldn't even operate properly? His phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Rivera? This is Officer Janet Mills with the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. We understand you've had some property stolen." "That's right. My neighbor took one of my jet skis about 20 minutes ago. She's heading north on the main channel, probably toward the state park." "Can you describe the individual in the watercraft?" Marcus provided the details, including Karen's address and the jet ski's registration numbers. Officer Mills took notes and assured him they'd investigate, but her tone suggested this wasn't their highest priority. After hanging up, Marcus found himself pacing the dock. The rational part of his mind said to let the authorities handle it, file an insurance claim, and move on with his day. But 3 years of enduring Karen's petty tyranny had built up considerable resentment. She'd questioned his parenting, criticized his property maintenance, and made his grieving daughter feel unwelcome in their own neighborhood. Now she'd crossed into actual criminality. "Dad," Sophia said quietly. "Look." She pointed toward the horizon, where dark clouds were building over the northern section of the lake. The weather forecast had mentioned possible afternoon storms, but the system looked bigger and more ominous than predicted. Wind was already picking up, creating whitecaps on the previously calm water. Marcus pulled up the weather radar on his phone. A severe thunderstorm warning had just been issued for their area, with possible tornado conditions. The storm front was moving fast, and it would hit the lake within the hour. "We need to get inside and secure everything," he told Sophia. Even as he spoke, his eyes remained fixed on the northern horizon. Karen Whitfield was out there somewhere, alone on an unfamiliar machine, with a dangerous storm approaching. Despite everything she'd done to his family, he couldn't shake the image of her terrified face as she'd struggled with the jet ski's controls. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from an unknown number. "Your neighbor is in serious trouble. Meet me at Clemson Marina in 30 minutes, if you want to help her. Come alone." Marcus stared at the message, his blood running cold. Sophia peered over his shoulder and read the text. Her face pulling. "Dad, this is getting really weird. Who would know your number? And how do they know about Mrs. Whitfield?" Before Marcus could answer, another text arrived. "She took your jet ski to save her daughter's life. But she's about to become part of a much bigger problem. The storm isn't the only thing hunting her." The wind gusted across the lake, sending waves crashing against the dock pilings. In the distance, thunder rumbled like a warning. Marcus looked at his daughter, then at the approaching storm, then at the cryptic messages on his phone. Karen Whitfield had stolen his property and disrupted his weekend plans. But if these texts were legitimate, she might be running from something far more dangerous than neighborhood complaints and HOA violations. And whether he liked her or not, Marcus couldn't let anyone face a storm like this alone on the water. "Sophia, I want you to go to your Aunt Maria's house until this weather passes." "Dad, no. If you're going after Mrs. Whitfield, I'm not going after anyone. I'm just going to make sure she's safe." He kissed his daughter's forehead. "This storm is going to be bad, and I need to know you're somewhere secure." Sophia studied his face, recognizing the determination that appeared whenever her father made up his mind about something. "Promise me you'll be careful." "I promise." As Sophia gathered her things, Marcus prepared his remaining jet ski and checked the weather one more time. The storm was accelerating, and the first bands of rain were already hitting the northern shore. Whatever Karen was running from, she'd chosen the worst possible day to steal a watercraft. He was about to leave for Clemson Marina when his phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed a federal number: U.S. Coast Guard. "Mr. Rivera, this is Petty Officer Sarah Chen with Coast Guard Station Charleston. We've received reports of a distressed watercraft in your area, and we understand it may be your stolen property. We're dispatching a rescue boat now, but we need you to stay away from the search area for your own safety." "Search area? What kind of distress are we talking about?" "Sir, I can't discuss details of an ongoing operation, but I need to stress that you should not attempt any rescue efforts on your own. The situation may be more complex than a simple theft." Marcus ended the call with more cue. Clemson Marina looked like a ghost town when Marcus arrived. Its normally bustling docks empty, except for a few die-hard fishermen securing their boats against the approaching storm. Rain pelted the water in sheets, and the wind had picked up. 2 dangerous levels. Marcus tied off his jet ski with shaking hands, his mind racing as he tried to process what he'd witnessed on the lake. The Coast Guard cutter had disappeared around the northern bend, but he could still hear the helicopter's rotors cutting through the storm. Whatever Karen had gotten herself into, it was big enough to mobilize federal resources on a Saturday morning. "You came." Marcus spun around to find a woman standing in the shadows of the marina office. She was maybe 40, with short dark hair and the kind of alert posture that screamed law enforcement. Her clothes were civilian jeans and a windbreaker, but everything about her body language said cop. "Who are you?" Marcus kept his distance, suddenly aware of how isolated the marina had become. "Agent Lisa Reyes." She flashed her badge quickly. "We need to talk about your neighbor, Karen Whitfield." Marcus's stomach dropped. What does the Drug Enforcement Administration want with a suburban soccer mom? Agent Reyes gestured toward the marina office. "Can we get out of this rain? What I'm about to tell you is going to change everything you think you know about your neighborhood." Inside the small office, surrounded by life jackets and marine equipment, Reyes pulled out a tablet and showed Marcus a series of surveillance photos. The images showed Karen's house, but from angles and with details that suggested long-term observation. "Karen Whitfield isn't just your annoying neighbor," Reyes began. "For the past 18 months, she's been our primary informant in a major drug trafficking investigation." The same investigation that's about to bring down one of the largest fentanyl distribution networks in the Southeast. Marcus stared at the photos, his mind struggling to reconcile this information with the woman who'd spent 3 years complaining about his lawn maintenance. That's impossible. Karen's the most law-abiding person I know. She calls the police if someone parks in the wrong spot. That's what made her perfect for the job. Reyes swiped to another photo, this one showing Karen having coffee with a woman Marcus didn't recognize. Her husband, Richard, got involved with some very dangerous people about 2 years ago. When we caught him laundering money through his accounting firm, Karen agreed to cooperate in exchange for his immunity. The timeline clicked sickeningly into place. 2 years ago was when Karen's behavior had shifted from merely annoying to aggressively territorial. She'd started hosting more social gatherings, asking more questions about neighbors' jobs and travel plans, paying unusual attention to who came and went from various houses. She was spying on us, Marcus said quietly. She was gathering intelligence on a drug operation that's been using Lake Hartwell as a distribution hub. High-end lakefront properties, wealthy residents with boats and privacy. It's perfect for moving product up and down the eastern seaboard. Marcus felt the walls of the small office closing in. What does this have to do with her stealing my jet ski? Reyes's expression darkened. 3 days ago, someone figured out that Karen was working with us. Yesterday, they took her daughter Emma hostage. The blood drained from Marcus's face. Emma Whitfield was Sophia's age, a quiet girl who'd been homeschooled for the past year. Karen had claimed it was for academic reasons, but now Marcus wondered if she'd been trying to protect her daughter from the dangerous game she was playing. The kidnappers gave Karen specific instructions, Reyes continued. She had to retrieve something from the northern part of the lake, coordinates we'd given her for a dead drop location, but they also told her she couldn't use her own boat or car, couldn't involve police, and had to complete the task within a specific time window. So she stole my jet ski because she was trying to save her daughter's life. Exactly. And now she's out there in a storm, probably lost, while the people holding Emma are getting impatient. Thunder boomed overhead, and the marina office lights flickered through the rain-streaked windows. Marcus could see the lake churning with dangerous whitecaps. No one should be out in these conditions, especially not an inexperienced rider on an unfamiliar machine. Why are you telling me this? Marcus asked. Why not just send your own people after her? Reyes hesitated, and Marcus caught something uncomfortable in her expression. Because the situation has become complicated. The people holding Emma aren't just drug dealers. They're connected to a larger organization, and they've made it clear that any official law enforcement response will result in the girl's death. But the Coast Guard is responding to reports of a federal fugitive, not a rescue operation. Someone leaked information suggesting Karen is fleeing prosecution, not trying to save her daughter. If they pick her up, Emma dies. Marcus stood abruptly, pacing the small space as the implications hit him. You're asking me to help you circumvent a federal operation to save a girl whose mother has been spying on me and my neighbors for 2 years. I'm asking you to help save an innocent 15-year-old whose only crime was having parents who made bad choices. The comparison to Sophia was intentional and obvious, but that didn't make it less effective. Marcus thought about his own daughter, safe at her aunt's house, and tried to imagine what he'd do if someone took her to force his cooperation in a criminal enterprise. What exactly do you need from me? Reyes pulled up a map on her tablet, showing Lake Hartwell with several locations marked in red. Karen was supposed to retrieve a waterproof package from coordinates here. She pointed to a cove on the northern shore. It contains evidence that could destroy the entire network: financial records, shipping manifests, names and locations of major players. Evidence you planted, evidence we've been collecting for 18 months. With Karen's help, the package was supposed to be picked up by our people yesterday, but the kidnapping forced us to change plans. Now Karen has to get it and deliver it to them, or they kill Emma. Marcus studied the map. The northern cove was treacherous in good weather, full of hidden rocks and shallow areas. In a storm like this, it would be nearly impossible to navigate safely. She'll never make it, he said. Even if she finds the location, she doesn't know the lake well enough to avoid the hazards. That's why I need you. You know every inch of this water, and you have a jet ski that can get us there faster than any boat the Coast Guard is using. The office door rattled in the wind, and Marcus realized that the storm was intensifying faster than predicted. If Karen was still out there, she was probably fighting for her life just to stay afloat. His phone buzzed with another text. Your neighbor has 90 minutes to complete her task, or the girl dies. No Coast Guard, no police, no heroes. Just Karen and our package. They're monitoring communications, Reyes said, reading over his shoulder. Probably have someone watching the lake with binoculars, maybe drones. They'll know if we send official backup. Marcus's mind was racing. The ethical calculations were impossible. Help a federal agent circumvent law enforcement to assist someone who'd been spying on his community, all to save a girl he barely knew from criminals who would kill her regardless of whether they got their evidence. But the alternative was letting Emma Whitfield die because her mother had tried to protect her from the consequences of her father's crimes. If I help you, Marcus said slowly, What happens to Karen afterward? What happens to Emma? If we recover the evidence and neutralize the threat, both Karen and Emma go into witness protection. New identities, new lives, far away from here. And if we don't? Reyes didn't answer, but her expression said everything. Marcus's phone rang. The caller ID showed Sophia's number. Dad, I'm watching the news. They're saying there's a federal fugitive on the lake, and the Coast Guard is doing some kind of manhunt. Please tell me you're not out there. I'm fine, sweetheart. I'm at the marina, staying safe until the storm passes. Promise me you won't do anything stupid. Marcus looked at Agent Reyes, who was watching him with desperate hope. Then at the storm-lashed lake where Karen Whitfield was fighting for her life and her daughter's survival. I promise I'll be careful, he said, which wasn't quite the same thing. After hanging up, Marcus turned to Reyes. I have conditions. First, once we get Karen and the evidence, you get Emma back safely. No negotiations, no additional demands from these people. Agreed. Second, when this is over, I want a full briefing on who else in my neighborhood has been under surveillance. My daughter lives there, and I have a right to know what kind of danger we've been in. That single quotes s ... more complicated, but I'll see what I can do. Third, if we're going to do this, we do it right. No cowboy operations, no unnecessary risks. Karen made this mess by trying to handle it alone. We're not making the same mistake. Reyes nodded, but Marcus caught her checking her watch. They were running out of time, and everyone knew it. As they prepared to leave the marina office, Marcus's phone buzzed with one final message. Your family has been safe because your neighbor kept them safe. Now it's your turn to return the favor. The girl's life depends on what happens in the next hour. The implication was clear. Karen's surveillance of the neighborhood hadn't just been about gathering intelligence on drug. The jet ski bucked like an angry horse as Marcus fought through 6-foot swells. Agent Reyes, clinging to his back with white-knuckled desperation. The storm had intensified beyond all weather predictions, turning Lake Hartwell into a churning cauldron of wind and rain that would challenge even experienced mariners. There, Reyes shouted over the engine noise, pointing toward a faint light bobbing erratically about half a mile ahead. That has to be her. Marcus squinted through the rain, his heart sinking as he recognized the signature of his stolen jet ski. Karen was barely staying upright, the machine wallowing in the troughs between waves as she struggled with controls she didn't understand. Even from this distance he could see she was in serious trouble. She's taking on water, he called, back to Reyes. The storage compartments must be flooded. His phone, secured in a waterproof case, buzzed with an incoming call. The display showed a blocked number, but Marcus answered anyway, putting it on speaker so Reyes could hear. Mr. Rivera. The voice was electronically distorted, mechanical, and cold. I see you've decided to play hero. How disappointingly predictable. Who is this? Marcus demanded, though he already suspected the answer. Someone who's been watching your neighborhood for a very long time. Someone who knows that your wife Elena wasn't killed in a random car accident 2 years ago. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. His jet ski nearly capsized as his hands jerked on the controls, and only Reyes's quick grab at the handlebars kept them upright. You're lying, Marcus said, but his voice cracked with sudden uncertainty. Elena discovered something. She shouldn't have. A money transfer from Richard Whitfield's accounting firm to a shell company in the Cayman Islands. She was going to report it to the FBI the morning she died. Instead, her brakes failed on that rainy curve on Highway 11. The world seemed to tilt around Marcus. Elena had been working as a part-time bookkeeper for several local businesses, including Whitfield and Associates. She'd mentioned some irregularities in their accounts, but he'd assumed it was routine auditing concerns. The police had investigated. Her accident, thoroughly mechanical failure due to worn brake pads, nothing suspicious. The brake lines were cut, Mr. Rivera, but the investigation was ... influenced by people who needed that information to stay buried. Reyes grabbed Marcus's shoulder, her voice urgent in his ear. Don't listen to them. They're trying to manipulate you, get you to make mistakes. But Marcus was remembering details from that horrible morning 2 years ago. Elena had been nervous. For weeks, making phone calls she wouldn't discuss, staying late at the office to review files. She'd mentioned wanting to talk to him about something important, but there had never been time. And then she was gone, and the grief had swallowed everything else. What do you want? Marcus asked the voice. Simple. Turn around. Go home. Let Mrs. Whitfield complete her task alone. Do this, and I'll provide you with proof of what really happened to your wife. Refuse, and your daughter Sophia will join her mother much sooner than either of you planned. The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone, his hands shaking with rage and terror. If these people had killed Elena to cover up their crimes, they wouldn't hesitate to target Sophia. But Karen was still out there, fighting for her life in conditions that would kill her within minutes. Marcus Reyes's voice was gentler now. I know this is a lot to process, but right now, we have to focus on saving Karen and Emma. Everything else can wait. Can it? Marcus twisted around to face her, rain streaming down his face. If they killed my wife, if they're threatening my daughter, then we stop them. All of them, but we can only do that if we complete this mission and get that evidence. Through the storm, Marcus could see the Coast Guard cutter's searchlight sweeping the water, getting closer to Karen's position. She was trapped between federal agents who thought she was a fugitive and criminals who would kill her daughter if she was captured. Marcus made his decision and gunned the engine, racing toward the struggling figure on his stolen jet ski. They reached Karen just as a massive wave nearly flipped her machine. She was soaked, exhausted, and clearly in shock, but she was still conscious and fighting to stay afloat. Karen. Marcus pulled alongside her, close enough to touch. It's Marcus. I'm here to help. Her eyes were wild with panic and disbelief. Marcus, how did you? This is impossible. You can't be here. Listen to me. I know about Emma. I know about everything. We're going to get her back. You don't understand, Karen screamed over the wind. They have my baby. If I don't get to the drop point alone, they'll kill her. You have to leave. Another wave crashed over both jet skis, and Marcus realized they were running out of time. The storm was pushing them toward the rocky shoreline, and the Coast Guard was closing in from the south. Where's the package? Reyes shouted to Karen. Do you have it? Karen shook her head miserably. I couldn't find the coordinates. The GPS is waterlogged, and I don't know this part of the lake. Emma's going to die because I'm too stupid to read a map. Marcus looked around, getting his bearings despite the chaos. They were about a quarter-mile from Dead Man's Cove, a notoriously dangerous area full of submerged rocks and hidden obstacles. If the drop coordinates were somewhere in there, it would take expert navigation to retrieve anything safely. I know where it is, he said. Follow me, and stay exactly in my wake. One wrong move, and you'll hit bottom. As they approached the cove, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message. The attachment was a video file. With growing dread, he opened it. The video showed Emma Whitfield tied to a chair in what looked like a boat cabin. She was crying, and there were bruises on her face. A man's voice spoke from behind the camera. Your mother has 15 minutes to complete her delivery, or you're going overboard with anchor chains around your ankles. Don't disappoint us, Emma. Marcus felt sick. These weren't just drug dealers, they were monsters who would torture a teenager to force her mother's compliance. There, Reyes pointed toward a partially submerged buoy marker barely visible in the churning water. That's got to be the drop point. Marcus maneuvered carefully between the hidden rocks, using every bit of his lake knowledge to find safe passage. Karen followed clumsily, her stolen jet ski scraping bottom twice before reaching the marker. Reyes dove into the freezing water without hesitation, disappearing beneath the surface for what felt like an eternity. When she emerged, she was holding a sealed waterproof container about the size of a briefcase. Got it, she gasped, hauling herself back onto Marcus's jet ski. Financial records, shipping manifests, everything we need to bring down the entire network. But as they prepared to leave the cove, the Coast Guard cutter appeared at the entrance, its searchlight pinning them like insects under a microscope. A voice boomed across the water through a loudspeaker. This is the United States Coast Guard. Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. You are suspected of federal crimes. Karen's face went white. No, if they arrest me, Emma dies. I have to deliver this package. Marcus looked at the Coast Guard cutter blocking their exit, then at the package in Reyes's hands, then at Karen's desperate face. The criminals had planned this perfectly used official law enforcement to prevent Karen from completing her task, giving them justification to kill Emma. There's another way out, Marcus said grimly, but you're not going to like it. He pointed toward the back of the cove, where white water marked a narrow channel between two massive rock formations. It was technically navigable at high water, but in these conditions, it would be like threading a needle while riding a hurricane. That's suicide, Reyes said flatly. Maybe, but it's the only route they can't follow us through. Their cutter draws too much water. The Coast Guard was launching an inflatable boat, preparing to close the distance. In minutes, they'd be in custody, the evidence would be confiscated, and Emma Whitfield would die for her mother's cooperation with federal authorities. Marcus revved his engine. Karen, stay right behind me. Don't deviate by even a foot, or you'll be paced on the rocks. I can't do this, she screamed. I'm not good enough. Yes, you are. Marcus looked back at her, and for the first time, he saw past the entitled petty woman who'd made his life miserable. He saw a terrified mother who would do anything to save her child. You've been fighting for Emma for 18 months. Don't quit now. As they approached the deadly channel, Marcus's phone rang one final time. This time, the caller ID showed his home number. Dad. Sophia's voice was barely audible. Over the storm, there are men at the house. They say they're friends of yours, but they're asking weird questions about Mom's accident. I'm scared. The phone went dead. Marcus felt the world collapse around him. While he'd been trying to save Emma Whitfield, these monsters had moved against his own daughter. The choice was no longer between helping a neighbor or staying safe. It was between saving one girl or losing another. Behind them, the Coast Guard boat was gaining fast. Ahead lay a passage that could kill them all in seconds. And somewhere in his house, men who had murdered his wife were now threatening his daughter. As Marcus aimed his jet ski toward the narrow gap between the rocks, he realized that the next 60 seconds would determine whether he saved Emma Whitfield's life or lost everything he had left in the world. The storm had become